Welcome back. So before I get on to the main point of this video, just a little thing to observe. Check how it's made. If it's got these dovetail joints, same as on the drawers, I don't know how well they're going to show. They fan out and they interlock, very good joints. Works on the same principle as the, I think they're called the stukas in the Far East, where all the wooden blocks of those towers just interlock, very strong joint. So now we get on to the real purpose of this video. It's the value in this. It's what is communicated from that timber. So please do not shoot the messenger. I am just transliterating what has been imparted as I reveal the grain and look deeper and make more of a contact. Plants and trees work on a very different time scale to humans. So the more time you spend, the longer you take over the sanding, doing it by hand. Incidentally, they don't like the vibration of orbital sanders. But the more you do it by hand, you're creating a friction which creates heat. Now, the information, the way it's communicated, is very much like a rose on a watering can. It's plants and trees see humans as priests and gods, would you believe, and archetypes, such as the Grim Reaper. Especially if you come along towards a tree with an axe, that's if they really see you at all for the short amount of time, because you'd just be like a blink of an eye to a tree. But they do see subliminally, and they do communicate, and there is an art in everything. So if you think about what is the medium in art that reveals so much, well, if you think about it, a painter will use paint, which part of its liquid form will be obviously water, and a composer of music will use ink, which has an element of water. We are mostly water. Trees work on a system called tension, where they draw up water. All their attention is towards the earth. You could almost, it's almost amusing, you could almost say from a tree or a plant's perspective, seeing us as gods or as priests. I'll get to why I've said that in a minute. Timber will express things in ways, so it will show you in the mind's eye. It's a bit like the way the water droplets come out of a rose of a watering can. It's the splashes across to things that stick in your mind. Thank you, Lana, for that. Things that stick in your mind. They stick in there for a reason. You may not know why at the time, but stick in mind they do. So those side splashes from those water droplets, that's the spark that's bringing that memory back. That you may think you've forgotten, but it just comes back as and when it's needed. And it's interesting, on the end of a watering can, it's called a rose. Now think of the flower, the rose. It's normally given as a sign of love, as a sign of affection, as a sign of empathy, or a sign of sympathy. So it's no coincidence that the water is coming out of a rose. You see, as soon as you plant seeds in the ground, like the melons, for example, you've become an intermediary between nature and the seed, and potentially the tree, because you have taken it upon yourself, taken the responsibility to plant the seed in a certain place. But now you become the life giver when you bring that watering can round. To a perspective of a tree, you could say that's like an artificial cloud, but you're just a fleeting glimpse to them, but you are a life giver. You can take the life away if you forget to water them, or if you choose not to water them. You become a god to them. They have their own school they've taken, excuse the pun, their own branch. When you think what a tree goes through, it can be dissected, it can be sliced up, turned into plywood, it can see or sense an approaching fire, but it can't move. This is why they think or look at us from a perspective like we're like gods, because we can move about, we appear to fly to them. And with a watering can we can bring them life when they're young. And a timber in particular has what is called heartwood, the hardening of the heart to the outside world is one sort of expression. But I said I call this Waltzing Matilda because I'm now playing a part of Adam, and I've given it a label, I've given it a name, but Waltzing Matilda it is because it is all about the dance of life. It is all about learning. This is a school. We're here to learn as much as anything else. Learn what you can change and learn what you cannot. So, for example, I cannot make this back into a living tree, but I can make it a star of the show on a YouTube channel. So potentially it becomes a kind of star. How many will remember that? How many it will stick in your memory? Who knows? That's all unknown potential in this precise moment. But what is ingrained in us? They're guiding humanity, and what else has come out of it is from the perception of this, what was once a living tree. The way it's communicated is just like the water droplets from a rose. It will eventually soak into all the surrounding soil, but it will get some bits first, so this is why you'll recognise some things sooner than later. Now, the plant world, the plant kingdom has its own version of an NPC. Not all seeds will germinate. Very few actually do germinate, because it's all about the fertile conditions, the soil. Too many shocks to the human avatar can disrupt things. So you're binge watching something like Netflix, and it's, say, supernatural horror stories, things that make you jump. Too many shocks can be a bad thing. Trees don't generally like sudden bangs, because sometimes that can be a crack and there's a forest fire coming towards them, and you think the tree can be aware of it and feel that heat, but what can it do? It can't run away. We have the ability to move, they don't. We're a folded up tree. Our root system is inside, it's the nervous system. There's also another element of the communication, the glass beads in the sandpaper. It causes a friction which generates a heat, which helps this timber, Waltzing Matilda, to tell her story. I have to transliterate into 5 senses from something that isn't neatly fitting into 5 senses. So ultimately, whatever words I use, it would be no different than trying to describe an instrumental piece of music. It's just what you hear and feel from that experience, which you can communicate, and that's all I'm doing. You may agree or not agree, but as much as anything else, this is a training school. You're no higher or lower than anything else living. It's just you've taken a different branch, a different faculty of part of this university. But what the trees are very good at doing are showing that you have things in the air and the air itself that will push that tree or that plant in various directions. You've got to be fairly flexible and go with the flow of it. The air is the spirit, and then there's also the ether element, of course. But because we're in a material realm, the greatest conduit is water, and that's, I mean, you've got so many clues. Ethernet, ether and net. Think about that, a web, a net, an ether. Well, then you've got feather, feather, the feather, and look at a feather and then look at a leaf. Very similar in design, and there is nothing that isn't by design. It's much as anything else, it's learning to be the observer, like you're going round a gallery, and this is all just one big gallery. Just observing. You may be drawn to something, or you may be repelled by something. To what extreme you take that, as to whether you say that should be outlawed, that should be banned, you're making judgments. That's the thing we're not meant to do. That's another part of this learning experience. It's a training ground as much as anything else, and through planting seeds and saying I'm setting myself up as an intermediary between nature, because nature wouldn't have put those seeds there. You've decided those seeds are going in that location. So it is now up to you to be a benevolent God and give them life, give them water when they need it. They are getting a bit scorched by the sun. This is why they're in pots. So fine-tuning adjustment. Nearly lost this flower here. I can't remember the names of these things, but they're coming back to life by giving them a new position. So it's given them a sort of almost a taste of being human, in being able to move them about and try them in different locations. Anyway, back to Waltzing Matilda. What are we up to here? I will say this message over several videos, but let's just take something else that came from this, and I invite you to look on a playlist called Begin Here. It's 2 children's stories, and one of them is the journey of the little soul. And in that, another will come along to play the part of the adversary. Because you're in a solid realm, a material realm, if you go in too deep, it can be very much a shock. Now, this perceived control system, they're playing the part of an adversary. Some of you are not going to like this. But when you see the pattern to everything, where do you feel emotions? Do they not well up from inside you? Is that not where your feelings come from when something you feel inside yourself? If you're triggered or you're elated, whatever the sensation is, it all feels within. The earth, there's a lot going on, a lot of visual movement with spirit, with air, but what's going on below? Same as with the tree. What about the bit you can't see, the root system that's in earth? That's where their communication is between each other. It's expressed in social media. How many times have you seen telephone technology, masts, and then saying, oh look, they're disguising it as a tree? Well, that's exactly what trees are. They are the natural communication of this material realm. Whew. Yes, so the controllers, or what you think of the controllers, they're not the problem. The underlying message, and it is an underlying message, is bubbling under. It's not the control system. They have been shocked to such a degree that they are like somebody who's had a stroke. They are communicating a message, and it is getting distorted. It's not coming out how it's supposed to be to guide humanity, but it's getting twisted. The problem is what bubbles under that top layer. It's the opportunists who are taking the quick fix route, who think, oh, if I have power over all these people, I decide to be a politician or a priest. I have power over them. I can do very well. I can be self-serving out of it. There's the whole aspect of the Grim Reaper. Well, the Grim Reaper is the harvester. You have to thin out seeds. Some seeds will not fall on fertile soil. The fertile soil is within your body, within your avatar. Whatever you take in will have an effect. If the conditions, the soil is right, it may grow badly. It's the spiritual growth. Anyway, I shall end there because this is getting rather long. And I'm going to say this in different ways, the same message over many videos. But ultimately, it's all discovery of yourself. The revealing what is ingrained. And this beautiful, beautiful communication. Thank you, Waltzing Matilda. May many remember you and see you in your new form. You will own nothing and be happy is the saying, is it not? So I am basically giving this timber, Waltzing Matilda, a new lease of life. Everything is finite in this realm. It could be I drop down dead, or it could be that I leave this land and I have to let go of Waltzing Matilda. It's all finite, it's all on loan, it's all about letting go. Trees know to do this with fruit. You cannot hang on to that lemon or that orange indefinitely. There comes a point where you have to let it go and let it find its own way. And if the conditions are right, it will grow and become another tree. That's its sole purpose. Now see that from a human perspective and realise who you are and what you're really here for.